I am Mariel Novas. I'm the Assistant Director of Partnerships and Engagement for the Education Trust here in Massachusetts, and I could not be more excited to be kicking us off today. This is the first of hopefully many Here Are Truth Family Forums, and it also marks the kickoff to our Meet the Moment Massachusetts campaign. We are thrilled to be able to bring forth students, parents, and community advocates who, through their own narratives and stories, will share with us not only about their experiences with remote learning in the spring and currently, but also their recommendations and their wishes for what they want to see be true in their schooling from their perspective in the coming year and beyond. I'm so excited. For those of you who do not know me, I grew up right here in Boston, and Boston is my home. The state of Massachusetts has been the site of my work. I was born in the Dominican Republic and grew up in Jamaica Plain and Roxbury. I was a student in the Boston Public Schools for half my life before I received a scholarship to attend private school outside of Boston. I've lived inequity. I've seen what it's like to have, and I've seen what it's like to not have. And I've seen that happen at extremes. And so for me, this is really a blessing to be able to convene with Natasha Shemirsky, our state director, the Massachusetts Education Equity Partnership, which I will be excited to introduce just shortly. So before we get going into that, I'm excited to share some logistics just to make sure that we are all on the same page. So give me 1 second as I share my screen. All righty. So we could not be more grateful to NBC Boston, NECN, and Telemundo for acting as our media sponsors for this campaign. They are simultaneously live streaming this event on Facebook. So shout out to Facebook and shout out to the live stream. So we know there's a lot of you watching out there, and we're really grateful for your attendance. This forum is for you, for our families. Unfortunately, what we have seen far too often throughout this very difficult time of pandemic has been that the voices of our students and parents, the folks most directly impacted by these inequities, have been often left out of decision making. And so this time is for us. So please use the chat. I've seen a couple of comments already to share your comments, your stories, and your questions. There's also a Q&A box. Please drop your questions in there. Somebody from our team will be monitoring both throughout the event, and we will make sure that if you have questions, we get them answered. But more than anything, we want to use the chat as a way for you to yourselves answer the same questions that you will hear our moderator share. So if you hear the question being asked of, what was difficult for your family during the spring and now with regard to remote learning, please feel free to share your story in the chat, to share your thoughts. We want this to be as interactive as possible, and we want to make sure to bring in as many voices as we can. We will also be having a follow-up mailing list where you'll be able to follow our campaign and receive updates for upcoming events. And so at the very end of the event, Natasha will make sure to share with us the instructions to make sure that you stay connected and plugged in so that we can keep building this together. And lastly, we do invite you to check us out, learn more about Meet by visiting us at www.masseduequity.org and by following us on Twitter at EdTrustMA. We are so excited. This is the Massachusetts Education Equity Partnership. We are a brilliant, heartful group of 30 plus organizations across the state, all of whom focus in some ways on civil rights, social justice, and education, and conduct advocacy across the Commonwealth, really focused on promoting educational equity and justice for historically or underserved and marginalized students and communities across our state. I've been involved in this work now for a year and a half alongside Natasha, and I can share that it has been the most gratifying experience of my life to convene this group, not only because of the amazing individuals that I've gotten a chance to get to know through this experience, but also because of the ginormous impact that is being felt across our state when we put our families at the center and when we really focus on promoting equity and justice in a way that directly connects to what our families wish to see. So, what does MEEP do? We first and foremost draw attention to educational inequities in our state. We make clear by disaggregating data and by inviting multiple perspectives that we have a clear understanding of what the gap looks like in our state. We advocate for policies and practices that will elevate the equitable instruction that we know our students deserve. And we make sure that we center students of color, students of low income backgrounds, students with disabilities, English learners, immigrant youth, and other marginalized students in our advocacy. And most importantly, and what we're most proud of, we work alongside our families in crafting these recommendations and in thinking about our advocacy. And so this is our first event for this campaign, and look forward to partnering with so many more families and educators and leaders across the state to really lift up our voices. As I mentioned, tonight is the kickoff to our campaign focused on really two main pillars. So I'm going to share those now. The first is, again, to ensure that student and family voices are informing policy and decision making at every level of our education system. We know, to speak frankly, that we have not, by and large, done a good job of exactly this. We need to be able to say that every choice that is made is done in constant consultation with our families, especially given the dual pandemics of COVID-19 and emboldened systemic racism. It is absolutely fundamental that we involve our families, the user, our client, in determining what it is that we need to do in order to ensure that all of our kids are learning, regardless of where they're learning from, and learning in a way that is rigorous and culturally responsive. Which brings us to the second goal of our campaign, which is we want to spark public demand for classroom instruction rooted in anti-racism and culturally responsive pedagogy. When I was the first in my family to go to college, and I came back home after I graduated because I understood that there were so many other kids like me who did not get the opportunity to receive a scholarship and go to a private school, who did not get the doors open that were open for me. And it just didn't sit right with me, that I would kind of keep going on my way. And, here was my community left behind. And so I returned. I returned and I became a teacher in the Boston Public Schools. And in my pedagogy, in my instruction, what became clear from day one is that above all, even though I was a math teacher for my middle school students, I was supporting their development as citizens of this world. I was supporting their understanding of self in our society and doing so in a way that would have them walk the world as whole beings. And so this campaign not only aims to center, the voices and opinions of our families and students, it also demands that the time is now. We see what's happening in our country. We know the injustices that are alive, and we have got to change how we approach how we teach. And so we want to really get that going. We know there are a lot of voices out there who have been calling for this for a very long time, and we're excited to join them in that call. I'm going to go off share, and wanted to conclude my short remarks by just sharing that, my family still lives right here, in Boston, in Hyde Park, Dorchester, Chelsea, Roxbury, and we have felt firsthand the impact of the last 6 months. I have shared this before, but my sister contracted COVID-19 early on in the pandemic, and it was an incredibly harrowing experience for my family. And she was just one family member. Uh, I recognize that it has taken a Herculean effort for our families to be able to withstand the headwinds that have come our way this year. They have made lemonade with the lemons that have been given to us. And we know that there have been countless surveys and statistics out there about the impact of COVID and this season on our families. But numbers are just numbers without the stories behind them. And so, with that, I am incredibly excited to welcome Lorena Lopera, the executive director of Latinos for Education, as our moderator for our panel and forum today. And so, I'm going to ask Lorena to come on. There she is. One of my favorite human beings. She will get us started, and I will be back at the end of our time together. Thank you all again so much for being with us this evening.
Thank you, Mariel. Really appreciate the invitation. Good evening, everyone. It is a pleasure to be with you today. My name is Lorena Lopera, and I am the mother of two children, one who is a first grader in the Boston Public Schools. He's currently attending school remotely. And let me tell you, a first grade is not easy ever, but it's definitely not easy for children via Zoom. And it requires an enormous amount of effort and skill on behalf of teachers, caregivers, and students for it to be remotely successful. I'm also the executive director of Latinos for Education Massachusetts. We're the first national Latino-led and founded organization dedicated to ensuring the needs and voices of Latino students and educators are met. So I come to this conversation with both a personal and professional investment in learning and amplifying the experiences within our communities. Additionally, similar to Mariel, I'm an immigrant to this country, and I grew up as an undocumented child in a household with limited English ability. Now, I share this because as a leader now, I constantly ask myself, what would this pandemic, this decision, this program, or this communication mean for me as a child or for my family? I think it's imperative that we pass the microphone to our most affected community members, which is why I'm honored to be a part of tonight's conversation. And I'm going to ask our panelists to join us by turning their cameras on. Great. Do we have everybody? There we go. Okay. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for allowing us into your homes. I know that this isn't your typical format, but I want to make sure that we are in real conversation. To do that, I'd love to kick us off with introductions. I'm going to ask Daniel and Aiden to start us off, and then we'll have Andresa and Alejandra. And really just want you to share of yourselves. Who are you? What's your hometown? What district are you enrolled in? What grade are you in? Just share who you are with us. Daniel, you're still muted.
Thanks for having me here. It is my pleasure to be with you guys. My name is Daniel Urizar. I work for Mass General Hospital. And also in there, I am a member of the Latino committee for the community for Mass General Hospital. Also, I am part of the School Facts, a family advisor member. And this group, it is the one advocate to have better schools and to improve the education for our city of Boston. And also I have the pleasure and the honor to be a mentor for teenagers. And I love to do that. And I am Aiden's dad. He got to Metco and he's going to introduce his self.
Hi, I'm Aiden Urizar. I'm 11 years old. I'm from Day Middle School. I'm in sixth grade, and I like to play video games, and I am a musician.
Thank you for that. Andresa, can you go ahead?
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for inviting me. My name is Andresa. I live at the city of Somerville, and also I'm an artist and an activist, and I work with a beautiful organization called MPU. And I'm here as a mother to speak what's going on in my community and with my life.
Thank you. Alejandra?
Hi, I'm Alejandra. I attend a school in Boston in JP called La Margarita Muniz Academy. I'm 17. I am a senior, and I work with High School Task Force as an art activist and also a leader for kids.
Thank you all. It's clear that we have many activists among us. So thank you for your commitment. Thank you for your work in the community. And thank you for making the time to be with us today. I want to get the viewers started by hearing directly from various folks in our community. So we're going to be sharing a clip where families share how they experienced remote learning this past spring. Let's take a look. Natasha, I think we might be having some issues with the audio. Well, since we have families live in front of us, we're going to pivot unless Natasha's been able to figure it out.
Hi, my name is Melanie Pierce Cardoso. I'm a rising junior at the John D. O'Brien.
My name is Daniel Urizar.
And I'm Aiden Urizar.
Remote learning for me this past spring was pretty good. I was able to get all my work done and pass all my classes, which was a great thing. However, it was very stressful, and I feel like overall I didn't learn anything from none of my teachers. I feel like I was more so understanding the material enough to get my work done, and we kind of just moved on from it.
Things I don't really like are the math because I already know how to do multiplication, and I also don't like music because it's really hard to do it on a screen because it's always delayed and you can never play together.
Es un desafío porque inicialmente tenía que estarla empujando para que ella pudiera estar pendiente a las clases y coger las clases que le correspondía, porque ella entendía que no tenía que estar en la computadora todo el tiempo.
It's a little hard to do with the iPad. I wish I had a computer on the side. The Wi-Fi doesn't really connect over here. It's really far.
And also what else?
It was hard to log into the meetings.
Why?
Sometimes it would work and sometimes it wouldn't.
No solamente ella estaba de manera remote, también yo tuve que trabajar uno de mis trabajos de esa manera y constantemente teníamos la dificultad de que o yo hablaba muy duro o ella hablaba muy duro y una con otra no nos permitíamos poder cada quien hacer su trabajo de manera adecuada.
We had this thing called IXL, and it was just for math, where you would be able to test your skills. And basically, if you got something right, you would go up 5 points, but if you got something wrong, you would go down 10 points. So it wasn't really fair.
My family didn't know too much about technology, so their mind was just completely blank about this whole remote learning and doing anything through technology in general. And for my family, it's hard to work virtually if we're just so used to working in person. Something that did work was how we all came together and helped each other out.
Thank you for that. It was exciting to see some familiar faces that in that video that are here with us today. So I'm encouraged to be able to hear some more perspectives of what your experience was like. And I know that we all experience different things, different challenges, different ups and different downs. So I'd like to have Daniel share a little bit first about what the experience has been as a parent from in comparison to the spring to what it is now, given that school has started up, but for the most part is still remote for the majority of students. What has that experience been like for you and for Aiden?
Well, now it is, I think we've been having conversations with Aiden to be on the same page, and it is more organized, right, Aiden?
Yeah.
So what's the difference you see between the summer and now? How do you feel about it?
I think my classes have been doing well lately.
All right, and it definitely it is a different experience now, but we're still struggling with many aspects like the communication. It is so key because it is tough to engage with many students and have them on the same page. And I think we're still having that issue now compared with the last summer.
You mean because it's in a remote setting, and so it's not like in a class where multiple people can engage in the conversation. It's just a lot harder to do virtually. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, it is for that because it is Aiden is still having the classes online, and also it is the emails. It is too much emails. um, I think I respect um, all teachers and principals. They try to do the best, but I think they're trying to do too much. uh, why I'm saying this, I see too many emails, and sometimes look like they are not in the same page. So that create confuse as parents and also as children, for the children.
Thank you. Thank you for that perspective. I'd love to hear from Andresa. Like, does that resonate with you? What has been your experience from the spring to what it looks like now in the fall?
For my daughter, it was she's a teenager. She has 14 years old, and I think was very difficult for her to understand that she wasn't going back to school, and it was kind of difficult to explain to her that our new routine will have she will have to participate in classes by computer. I think on a springtime, it was kind of confused, but the schools, even here in Somerville, they were doing a very good job trying to communicate with us as parents, and all the time by email, by telephone, talking to us, um, um, telling people who speaks our language. Um, but now we all have still have this amazing support, but I have been seeing a lot of parents having difficult. Me as a mother, I have the lucky that my daughter, she has 14 years old and she can handle the morning routine,
Right.
but it's been difficult too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the situation I think is just difficult for everyone. And I'd love to hear the perspective from our students, right? Alejandra, what has been different? What was challenging in the spring? What is maybe better now, or what is more difficult now? Would just like to hear your take on that.
Definitely when we first started online school, everyone was confused. Everyone was just worried. I know personally as a student, a lot of kids in my grade were just worried about passing. It didn't matter how or what they were going to do, they just wanted to pass without having to go to summer school, because a lot of them feared, well, if I went to summer school virtually, I'm failing regardless, because there's a lot of components to it. Now we're starting to ease into it, and I feel like it's really challenging because it's gotten to the point where it's like you're explained, you get the material gets explained to you, and it's like you can understand it well enough to just like say, okay, I could do the work, and then I'm gonna just let it be. And it's challenging because I know teachers are trying to fill the gap in between how virtual learning is and how school in person is, but it's like you can't fill the gap because it's not the same.
Right.
It's not the same to be in a school where you're sitting with your teacher versus you staring at a screen and just listening someone talk to you. And
Right.
not only that, kids don't feel motivated.
Yeah. So on that topic, walk me through your typical day. Like, what does that look like for you right now? What's your schedule? Just give us a sense of what your day looks like.
So basically, I would wake up around 8 because I start school at 8:30, so that would give me 30 minutes to wake up, brush my teeth, and just do what I had to do. Usually what would happen was that I would log in around 8:20 to be on time to class. And literally we would start classes and only like 2 to 3 kids would show their faces on camera. The rest of them, it was just dark screens. And like even the teacher said it, like it's boring teaching to just dark screens. Like let's try to find a way to show our faces and trying to engage in class. And it's yet again motivation. No one has it, so therefore nobody wants to do it. Everyone just listens. And it's boring because it's stressful as well. Like sometimes there are things where we have a certain amount of time of class, like 45 minutes, and yet some of us stay confused and we have to wait a certain day or a certain hour in order to get the help we need if there aren't as many students in the office hours or breakout rooms for your answer to be questioned fully.
Right. So, I mean, it's clear that, one of the pieces you're talking about is the importance of relationships and being able to have engagement with a class, right? So teacher and student and student relationships. But either way, there's one teacher and there are multiple students, and now it's just a more difficult format to be able to engage in the one-on-one and answer the questions that students may have. So thank you for sharing that. Aiden, I'd like to hear from you, like what your day looks like and what your week looks like now. What's your schedule?
I usually get up, I make my breakfast, I log into my first class by 8:30, and my last class is usually by like 3:15. It's a long day to be seated at a small screen for a long time, and I think sometimes it gets hard doing it all the time.
Thank you. Thank you for that. That sounds like it can be difficult. It's hard for me as an adult, so I can only imagine what it is for our little ones, right? Not that you're little, you're 11, so my apologies. I'd love to hear from the parents. I think both of you were talking about the outreach that you were receiving from your schools and your district. Would love to hear a little bit more about that. Like what has worked and what was perhaps helpful, and how regularly are schools and districts reaching out to you, and what's the right amount that would work for you and your family?
All right. I'm going first. So definitely, it is a tough situation for everyone, and I represent every dad from Boston right now with children. I want you to have in mind, I work for Mass General Hospital and my wife too. So we cannot stop working. We have to work daily. Plus, my wife work in the medical field, and I am a supervisor right there. So we have responsibilities. And the same time, we have Aiden here in the house doing the classes online. So if he have some difficulties to connect with the links or about communication, sometimes he try to reach us and we cannot answer because we are busy, because we are frontliners right now because of the pandemic. So we've been facing tough challenge. Plus, let's have this in mind, plus COVID-19 and all things going on, we adding the issues with the school right now. I remember they had many meetings, almost weekly or twice a week meetings, and all those meetings repeating all the same information and the same information. And as even some parents, they was so frustrated, and they start talking and talking, and I end in those meetings with a big headache. So they didn't organize the communication, even emails, we never receive a text. And we use text right now. It is more simple, faster, and only emails. And sometimes they send long emails from principals or teachers or groups. So that, I think that was my tough challenge right now when we came back for the online classes.
Yeah. And Daniel, when you are looking for information and when you want to speak to somebody in relation to Aiden's schooling, who do you reach out to? Like, who's your source? Who are you most comfortable with?
The assistant, the principal assistant, she's been so flexible, and she respond very quick. I am surprised because it is a busy lady, and I appreciate that. But even that, I don't have the teacher's information, and Aiden is doing middle school right now. In summer, I used to be in the same loop, in the same emails with Aiden and us with my wife. But in this time, because he's in middle school, we out. We are blind right now. We don't have no idea what's going on every day as parents. Aiden received all the information, but he got to handle everything here in the house. So we've been having strugglings about that.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that can be a difficult challenge. Andres, I would love to hear from you. What does communication look like? What has been helpful in terms of communication, and who do you go to when you are interested in who's your source?
So for my daughter's school, we are having emails like almost every day. Um, but I think her teachers, they are very, very nice, and they are calling us, emailing, text messaging. So they are always approachable. Um, Also, as I am PU mom, these organizations has been teaching us parents to advocate for us, for ourselves. So we know that when we need to speak, we have to go and call them and email them, and always be there, because if things are not going to change if you don't do nothing. Um, but I have mothers that is being on our hearing about my activism here. So most of them are having very hard time because they don't speak the language. They don't speak English very well. So I know they're suffering a lot. Um, my daughter, she is like a teenager, so for me it's easy. But a mother for kids are like 5 through 8, it's been really tough on them because they have to go to work, and sometimes they don't know. Like, let's say we have a thing that happens today. Like a mother called me saying, "Oh, my daughter, she was out because she was trying to connect on the computer, and I don't know what to do because she's gonna be absent." So I told her that she has to call the school or email the teacher. That's something that's very nice. Email the teacher right away. So tell them you're having issues with the computer, So I think we have a good communication in English, but as far for other communities like Haitians, Spanish community, Brazilian community, that's my community, they are really having a hard time right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for bringing that up. As I mentioned earlier, that was my life growing up. And so I can only imagine the difficulties that many students and the responsibilities that's falling on many students to try to navigate the information and then share with their parents. And it becomes increasingly difficult and almost completely impossible when they're younger children, the 5-year-olds, the 6-year-olds, the 7-year-olds. So thank you for bringing that perspective. Alejandra, you had mentioned the piece around being able to connect with your teachers. And I'm curious because as you mentioned, like there seem to be limited times in which you can engage with your teachers. And so who are your support systems at school? Like what does that look like for you now?
When I definitely do need help, I really reach out to my principal. And I talk to him, I email him, or when I honestly feel like I didn't have enough time or there wasn't enough time for me to actually engage with my teachers, I usually just email them and they'll get back to me the next day or in a couple of hours, depending on their schedules. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And really quickly, Aiden, what about you? Like when you're stuck with something or there's an issue that you can't figure out, or maybe an assignment that you need help with, who do you look for support at your school?
I usually look for my main teacher, the teacher that I'm in with that subject,
And
mostly my advisory teacher.
is
So
it easy to get a hold of them? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it is. Well, sometimes because when there's another problem with other people, it's like hard because they have to like look through each email and have to answer.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. So we want to hear from some of our other families that have engaged in these conversations with us. And so we're going to share another video. And you know, the thing that I will say is, as I'm listening to this group and as I've had conversations with many other families, I'm reminded that our children and our families want to figure this out, right? We want to make it work. And it's clear that this situation is not easy, but we are filled with a desire to continue to support our children. And so we need to make it possible. In our next video, we asked families what they did to make remote learning work and what they were most proud of. Here's what they shared.
My name is Catherine Rivera, and I'm going to show you how the remote learning looks at my house. This side used to be Joseph doing his remote learning with his own computer, and Melexi used to do her work in her own computer. She also has all her paperwork here well organized, and when it comes to do their work, we had enough supplies and the necessary materials for them to work comfortably.
My name is Daniel Urizar.
And I'm Aiden Urizar.
We decide to move Aiden, so you're going to come with us very quick, and we're going to move forward to a special room we built for Aiden. All right, here is his space for Aiden. So what I did for Aiden in this case, I have to run a new wire for Wi-Fi for Aiden.
So like this is where I usually do my classwork. I got my keyboard and my mouse. And I mostly do my work here. But not on this screen, more like on like an iPad. And I have all my materials here, and then when I'm done, I usually play the games.
Hi, my name is Alejandra de la Cruz, and I'm going to be telling you my experience with online/virtual learning. We had like 45 minutes of class time. It didn't really help at all because it was like you're sitting there and you're just listening to someone talk to you, you know? It didn't feel real. I'm the type of student that needs hands-on learning, so for sure it felt like a struggle to me. And yeah, I didn't really like it. Also, the teachers did have office hours, but in those office hours, there were like 20 to 30 students that were confused. So it was like 1 hour for 30 students. And it would be times where they couldn't answer everyone's questions. And it took me having to text my teacher like 10 times a day or set up 3 virtual calls just out of her time from actually having to be a teacher in order for me to understand what I had to do.
We do have internet, which is a huge challenge because every day is not the same. The bandwidth some days are good and then the connection was bad the next day. but thankfully they did all the work.
Thank you for listening to my opinion.
Thank you for that. I am always amazed how necessity breeds ingenuity. And I think while it does, it doesn't come at a small price. And this is hard, right? I'm at home. I can work from home. I have a partner that's a part of raising my children, and I'm exhausted. And so when we think about what that means for other families who have additional challenges, this is just really difficult. But somehow you all figure out what to do. And so I want to just do a little bit of a pulse check with each of you. Because this is challenging, I want to hear from you. How are you holding up? How are your families holding up? What's the impact that this situation, this experience is having on you physically, emotionally, mentally? And I'm gonna kick us off with Andresa. Let's have you go first.
I think it has been very stressful for both parents and students. First, to us figure out what we're going to do, how this whole thing was going to work. And for me, Luna, she's very, how can I say? She was very, she understood um, that this was the new situation, and she was going to operate in a smooth way. But for me as a mother, and I have to work, I have a lot of things that I do right now, and then I have to figure out how she's doing classes. It's been stressful.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. It's a hard situation, but thank you for sharing, and thank you for your strength for your daughter. I think that that's really important to state. Daniel, I'd like to go to you. You mentioned that you're an essential worker. You're on the front lines of this pandemic. How are you doing?
I am alive, and I'm happy to say this because many people uh, they couldn't make it, and me and my wife got sick, and also my parents-in-law. So because our apartment is too small, um, we didn't have too many options. So we have to insulate Aiden and my daughter. So and we stay between the kitchen and the living room with my wife. So I remember when um, we have to cook with my wife with gloves and mask and everything, and we have to like do a text or a call and say, okay, your food is at the door, can you come and pick it up? And that's the reality. That's the reality. But uh, it is very painful to go back to that experience. We we spent 21 days insulated. And I remember Aiden told me many times, I want to hug you, I want to hug you. And I say, no, you cannot. So we took 21 days until we could hug Aiden. So was very painful experience, and plus we adding the issues with the schools.
Right. Yes, it definitely sounds like it's challenging. Like I said, this has been challenging for folks in different ways. So thank you for sharing that. Uh, Alejandra, I wanted to ask you. This is your senior year in high school. Just checking in. How are you feeling about what this means for you?
Um, I'm nervous and I'm kind of like a little bit just, it's already like draining enough as it is because it's online and I'm a senior and this is like, this matters. And this this year is the year where I have to shine and I have to make it through in order to go to college. So I'm kind of just stressed out and drained. and it's also kind of exhausting because I am constantly checking my grades to see if it goes down or not, because if your grade goes down, your GPA goes down. And I'm like really crazy when it comes to that. So it's just exhausting and draining, and it's just a lot of work, but you're going to get through it. I'm going to get through it. So I haven't lost that sense of hope yet.
I love that positivity, and I hope that you continue to stay that way. And yes, you will get through this. And I know that you have some amazing folks in your life and mentors in your life that will make sure you get through this. So, who I know are listening at this moment. So, thank you for sharing that. And again, thank you for your positivity. I want to go back to Daniel and Aiden. I saw some bright spots and definitely ingenuity in the video. Daniel and Aiden, can you tell us a little bit more about how you made the situation work? I know you had to like reroute some wires and move some things around. Would love to hear from you what you did and what you learned about yourselves and your family.
Well, then I detect the problem was a big issue with the Wi-Fi, right, Aiden?
Yeah. The regular wireless Wi-Fi usually never worked because it's in a far part of the house. So we had to arrange a lot, and we had to like get wired Wi-Fi, and it would work much better because it was wired. So we'd have to do a lot of work trying to get myself having good Wi-Fi for my meetings.
So now we are sitting in the old place where Aiden used to be online, because I fixed those issues already in the house. But if you saw in the video, we have to relocate Aiden from this spot to a new spot. And that was a good idea, and it was a good decision, and I'm happy with. And what we learned about it, it is as humans and children, right? We can find solutions and adjust to those changes, and we did it, and now the Wi-Fi, it is working much better. But now fall is here and winter is coming, and the little space we built it for Aiden didn't have enough, I would say enough insulation, because we did it so fast. So and the video, if you guys pay attention to the video, close to the Aiden's desk, you see a window. Right. So between the last 2 days, we have to break that wall and connect with our let's room so they can be more warm in the winter, and we have to do that kind of work. It is nobody's fault. Right. It is nobody's fault. We're not pointing no one. It is just we're just trying to find the ways to do better. Right, Aiden?
Yeah.
So how you feel with that change? What do you learn about it?
It's a little tough.
Tough?
Yeah.
An honest answer. It is. It is tough. It absolutely is.
This is my little me, and I like to congratulate Aiden for doing this, and also Alejandra. I am so proud of you. I am a mentor of teenagers, and I wish to have you too in my plate as a mentee. But what I'm saying it is, everybody have battles right now, different kind of battles. Okay, and the reason why I say this is because I want to highlight this. Aiden, he's doing an amazing job with this presentation right now, but I want to share with you, and he know that he is fighting with anxiety a lot and a big time. And I've been holding him, his hands right now, and you notice I've been talking with him and everything, and he's doing an amazing job so far, because how I describe anxiety.
Yeah.
It is a terrible feeling. Nobody want to have it.
Well,
and he's sitting in the front of you guys, all of you guys, and to share his story. So I am proud of my son, and also in Alejandra, because it is so nice to have the voice of our children to see, to everybody can see what's going on. So thank you so much for this stage, for this opportunity.
No, thank you for sharing, and thank you for being an incredible role model to your son and to all of us, all of those who are viewing. I think it is amazing to have youth voice here. It's incredibly important, and often forgotten. And I think that we need to change that. And so thank you again for that reminder. And Aiden, you're killing it. You're doing a great job. You're hired for this. Speaking of getting youth voice, so I recently asked my son what he needed in the house to feel like he could feel really successful about remote learning. And I will preface this story with saying that just a reminder that he is 6 years old. I was really surprised by his answer because he told me he needed a pointer like this at home to point at words and letters and numbers and all sorts of things around the house, because that's what was going to make him feel like he could do the work. And so I know that that's a really silly example. Again, he's 6, but I'm curious, especially from Alejandra and Aiden, what is it that you need right now? What do you need right now in order to be successful and to be engaged in your learning? And we'll start off with Alejandra.
Honestly, I wanted to say to go back to school, but clearly that's not an option. Honestly, for me, the best way I get my work done is by having a quiet place. I have my notebook, my book, my highlighter, my notes around me, just anything I need. Something that could really help me would be for me to definitely have more like kind of check-ins with my teachers and seeing where me and them can actually like have a talk about it, and we have been planning for that, so I think that's a huge help to me.
Thank you for that. I'm hoping your teacher's listening, and if they're not, we're going to send them the recording. Aiden, would love to hear from you. What about you? What do you need to feel successful and feel engaged in your learning right now?
What I need for my support is I need support, help, and be more patient with us as students, making everything more simple and understandable what works for us. Listen to our voice too. Take the time to know us and our needs.
That's beautiful. Thank you for that. And again, I hope your teachers are listening, and not just your teachers, but just teachers in general, educators in general, parents, right? Everyone, to ask what their children need or what children in front of them or around them need. So thank you for those. Daniel, I'll go to you since your mic is open. What is it that you need as a parent? We know that right now education is in full partnership between educators, between teachers and schools, and families at home. So what do you need in order to be successful support for your child?
I think what we need is what we're doing right now. And that's the reason why we're not moving forward to the next step. We've been stuck in the same spot for many months. And I want to highlight this. Hospitals, or at the hospital I work, we didn't have enough time to prepare to face this COVID situation. We switch places, and we work so hard to prepare areas to receive patients so quick. I would say in days, couple of days, 3 days, and we move forward. And I'm talking about couple of days, all right? So, but the school districts, they've been working for the last 6 months. Listen this, 6 months. And I feel like we're still in the same place. We're not moving forward. So why I'm saying this, I go back to the beginning. What I need, it is what we're doing right now. Families, let's get together like we're doing right now, and let's speak for our children.
Absolutely.
Because we should be listening. And I think the communication, it is so important, because we noticed in the beginning of the presentation, we have some trouble with the audio and the video. So you see how important it is, the communication. It is like we are on mute, all of us, as families, as parents. And they've been taking decisions alone, but they're not listening. They're not listening to Aiden, to Alexandra, and many children. Aiden represents many boys, and Alexandra represents many girls from different ages.
Absolutely.
But they are mute. We are mute. So,
right.
And I like to congratulate everyone. It is in this event right now, because we're doing the right thing to move forward.
Well, thank you for that. And thank you for continuing to highlight the need for folks to listen to our families and our students. Thank you for that. Andresa, in the spirit of listening to families, I'd love to get your perspective on what you feel you need.
As Daniel said, we definitely need to speak up what's going on right now. Also, I think every school should have somebody ready to speak the languages of the parents, like Portuguese or any language. But they have to be like maybe like as an emergency, line or something like that. So a parent has something they can call right away and say, "Hi, I'm having a problem with my daughter's having a problem with the classes." I have one parent that she couldn't go. She couldn't understand how the schedule was, because it's by colors of one school, and she was going crazy. She was going nuts. So she called me because she knows that I've been part of the Massachusetts Parents Organization, and that's our motive, is to speak up, to advocate, to go and say, I have this problem, but I need, what I think is now parents is still lost because they don't know how to speak up, who they should looking for, to if they have any problems. Another thing I think is, let's communicate with our kids. Like every day after school, I ask Luna, how was her class? Uh, did you have any teacher that you didn't like? The teachers is doing a good job, or is the class creative? Is the class flowing well? So every day I ask her, I ask for her perspective. So I know that if it has something that she doesn't like, I'm gonna go and email the school. So I think that's everybody who's like, as a parent right now, we should be on. We should be like right there, like go and please don't be afraid to say if something is not working well. You have to say, because we are in all this together, and this is something new for everybody. Even the schools, I think they are trying hard. Every city hall, every school, they are really trying hard. But we need to show them that if something's not working, we can get better.
Thank you for that. And I think you're incredibly right. It's important that each individual family raises their voices and demands to be heard, because when we all do that, then it's not just one family or one student. Then it's a lot of us. Then it's a movement, right? And so I think it's important to continue to offer our perspectives and also offer our partnership, right? Because as you've all said, folks are working hard on the other side, but we just need a coordinated effort. We all need to work together in this. Just want to thank you all for your time, your courage, and your extraordinary efforts to sustain learning in these times of crisis and confusion. I really appreciate you being here with us tonight. For everybody else, we know that schooling has resumed and real challenges persist. Our families, as you've heard tonight, are doing the best that they can with whatever they have available to them. They are doing everything they can to meet this moment. And so we have to do the same. We have to do whatever we can to make sure that their perspectives informed decisions surrounding education. We're going to share one more clip with you featuring our families and their opinions about what they'd like to see this year. And then following that, Natasha and two community activists, one from Springfield and one from Boston, will be joining us. Thank you.
Hi friends, I am really sorry. I accidentally closed the tool that we need, so give me just 1 second and we will get this video up and running. So, as I said, we are very much learning how to do this. One moment. Perfect.
She's really concerned on the school coming back. She's telling me already that she doesn't want to go back to school. She's really afraid. She's afraid for the other kids. She's afraid for the teachers. And she's afraid they're not going to be prepared.
Remote learning would to be continued. Something that the school in the city should provide is really, really strong Wi-Fi. Provide computers, meals, and counselors. Some people don't have specific things other people have, so that would be a big help to certain people. Not just for me, but for everybody.
Claro, si no fuera por las facilidades que nos están dando las escuelas de clases virtuales, las cosas que él utiliza, computadora, cuaderno, lapicero, todo eso que nos facilitaron las escuelas, pues no sé qué hubiera pasado conmigo. Y de antemano, gracias a todas las personas, maestros que han ayudado a mi hijo para que él pueda seguir adelante en su estudio.
I was gonna have prom, I was gonna have a graduation ceremony, but it didn't go like that. I'm planning to go to UMass Boston next year, and I kind of hope that we do get some time on campus, you know, because I want to get in touch with like my other classmates. I want to get in touch with my professors, you know, I want to meet with people and that.
I hope the next school year consists of in-person classes that fit social distancing guidelines. I think that they should provide multiple options for classwork in case students are unable to complete certain assignments due to their circumstances. So like if they don't have Wi-Fi or power or laptops, you know, just make it accessible to everybody.
Continue to be supportive and trying to do your best to be there for us when we need extra help, and just to be as clear as possible so that we really understand what is required of us.
I feel like I don't like the whole system that they're having for going back to school year. So I'd personally rather just stay home and do remote learning, even though I don't like remote learning.
He podido compenetrarme mucho más con mi hija, siempre hemos tenido una buena relación, pero en este tiempo hemos podido compartir más tiempo y compartir algunas actividades en común, como por ejemplo escuchar música, grabar videos de TikTok.
Hi, everybody. My name is Natasha Wishamirsky. I'm the State Director for Massachusetts at the Education Trust and have the absolute pleasure of working with Marielle to facilitate the work of the Massachusetts Education Equity Partnership. We are so thrilled that you all were able to join us today for this panel. Thank you so much to all of our panelists who have just painted an absolutely striking picture of what this experience has been like, and I think have given us an incredibly generous glimpse into their lives and their experience, and we're just incredibly grateful for that. You know, I come to this work kind of from two perspectives. On the one hand, I'm an immigrant as well, and I have often in the last, in recent months have found myself thinking back to sort of what would this experience have been like for my family when we had first moved here, when things were really, really hard and we were adjusting to a whole lot of new things. And this is a huge new thing to adjust to as well. And at the same time, I also, spend a lot of my days thinking about policy and thinking about what state and district leaders do or can do to help support families, to help support educators in supporting families. And I think oftentimes one of the pieces that really resonated with me from the previous panel is the sense that there's this disconnect between what families are experiencing and what actually happens or doesn't happen at the district or state levels. And so one of the things we're hoping to do in this next panel, when I'm joined by my amazing co-panelists, is to really pull out some of the kind of lessons learned, some of the things that we're hearing from families, and issue a call to action. What does this mean for how we shape policy and practice moving forward? So with that, I would love to introduce two amazing community leaders, pillars of their communities in Boston and in Springfield. First, Dr. Gerald Gabot, who is the Executive Director of Immigrant Family and Services Institute. Gerald, whenever you have a chance to turn on your camera, thank you. And Lakeisha Coppage, who supports families in Springfield and is the head of and founder of Coppage Consulting. And first and foremost, I would love for each of you to introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about the work that you do. And maybe Gerald, can we go to you first?
Sure. It is such a pleasure for me to be with you all as we talk about the future of our students. My name is Gerald Gabot, and I am the executive director of an organization called the Immigrant Family Services Institute. It's a nonprofit organization serving immigrants in the greater Boston area with a focus on Haitians in Mattapan, Dorchester, and Hyde Park. And I am a biological mother of 3 wonderful children, but also a community mother for hundreds of students who are learning how to navigate, this crisis that we are in with COVID-19 and online learning. So I am a daughter, I'm an immigrant, and as a daughter of immigrant parents, I was consistently reminded about the greatest gift that parents can leave to their children. It is the gift of education. So as an advocate, as a community leader, I am so concerned about the future of our children, of our community, because without a great education, we know that parents do not leave wealth, do not leave fortune behind for us. But when they leave us with a great education, we know that we can go and fend for ourselves. So that's the reason why I'm in this movement, because I want to make sure that my children, wherever they're coming from, whatever language that they speak, that they can have access to a wonderful quality education. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Lakeisha Coppage. I am humbled to be invited to this conversation. I am a mother of a senior. I am the grandmother of a kindergartner, and I am the proud professor to students in the dual enrollment program at Commerce High School in Springfield and Worcester State University. I am also the proud founder and principal of College Consulting, a cultural awareness training organization, and the newly appointed early childhood education student liaison. This conversation is very important, and as a community member, leader, and advocate, I lend my voice anytime, actions, and service to the cause. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Both of you do the absolutely incredible work of supporting families in your communities. And we are so thrilled and proud to have you at the Massachusetts Education Equity Partnership table. I want to start by asking you to reflect on what you heard from the previous panel and really thinking, put that in context for us of what you're seeing among the families that you work with.
Definitely, Natasha. So what really we heard is, in a way, chaos. chaos at so many different levels when our parents cannot find resources that they need to support their students, when students cannot have access, to teachers so that they can do their homework. And I heard that everything is moving very slow for our Black and Brown students, when in other communities, everything is moving so fast. We are months in that crisis, and we feel that things are not moving the way that they are supposed to be. So I heard that communication is a big issue. And it seems that there is a one size fits all that we've been using for years and that we continue to use during this crisis that we are facing. Sometimes it's too much of emails. Sometimes it's even lack of, a phone call or text messages. Sometimes it's confusing messages coming from different sources. So it's a lot of stress on parents to really navigate this very, very complex system that we are facing right now. I also hear that uh, parents are doing the best that they can to really get the best out of it for their children. And as you know, immigrant parents in general, they can sacrifice themselves so that they can rescue their children. They are willing to do whatever it takes. So, and I think it's on us as leaders, as district members, to do whatever it takes. I always said, in this situation, it's whatever it takes to bring the best to our students.
Well, short of being redundant, I echo everything that was just said. I think communication also is at the top of the list. And I believe that if we're able to create a creative, strategic partnership and community building, not on equality, but on equity, and speak and reach out to families to find out what they need versus what we think they may need, that will definitely make a change. So I'll just add that small piece to what she's already said. I 100% agree.
And I hear you and absolutely agree that we all must step up and do everything that we can in order to support our families right now. I wonder if, kind of based on what you heard from the families, based on the experiences of the families you work with, if you could talk a little bit about what some of those highest leverage things are. What are some things you really wish your school districts were doing better right now to help support families? Knowing kind of that everyone is building the airplane as we fly it, right? This is really hard. And maybe Lakeisha, can we go to you first on this one?
Absolutely. I would say be more aware of the technology and maintenance of such technology. If the students can't do the work, if they're being penalized for missing a class because their laptop did not work, then put that at the top of the list. Communicate with parents. I must say, there hasn't been much communication across each age group. And as a parent, I'm speaking on behalf of myself in regards to the lack of communication that I've received. There's some great communication, but there is more less great communication. And so, with that being said, technology has to work, and we have to see what's needed in each household in order to support that.
And one thing that I always talk about, Natasha, is the building the village around our students. This is the time for us to move from the business as usual. We are in a pandemic, and as we all know, the pandemic reveals so much the deep disparity that exists between so many groups among our student population. So we cannot continue to do business as usual. This is the time for us to bring the entire village, to connect with parents, to connect with community-based organization leaders, church leaders, to connect with business leaders so that we can bring all the resources that our students need to make them successful. We cannot, and that's what I repeated, we cannot continue with business as usual because we are living extraordinary time that requires extraordinary interventions. So we need to be thinking outside of the box. What can we do? What do we need to do to make sure that our students have access? And I think for so long, they did not have enough access. And now this is the time for us to really jump on this opportunity to bring the best we can to our students.
Absolutely. And as you both have pointed out, that this is, there's a lot of work to be done within the education system. There's a lot that we need to do outside the system too. This is an it takes a village moment. Absolutely. And so I wonder if, for kind of our last question, before we bring everybody back for our Q&A, if you could talk a little bit about what advocates or in community-based organizations, folks working outside the system to support families, can do to rise to this moment.
I'll start. I'll first say, I think I'm echoing Daniel when I say have us continue these forums, open them up, have them led 100% by parents and guardians and caregivers, asking them what do they need, what experiences are they having. So this type of format is amazing, but also meeting families where they are. Making sure we're reaching out in diversified ways. Email doesn't always work for families. Text doesn't always work, phone calls. So making sure that we're diversifying that outreach so that we're reaching as many as possible. It's never going to be 100%, but at least attempt to do so in multiple ways. So keeping those connections, asking the questions and not assuming what's needed is definitely the start of a fruitful conversation.
Yes, and I will just add that we need our leaders to be very intentional about building strategic partnerships that would help our students, that will serve them better. When I said intentional, most of the time when you go to meetings with different district leaders, you hear them talk about parent engagement. You hear them talking about community collaboration, but it's all about simple talk. When it is time for them to take action, to show that they really want that partnership, you don't see that. It's like we are just being used as just a name to put on a list or a checkbox. And I think they need to be very intentional. And we as community leaders, that's the reason why we need to keep the conversation at the table. We need to bring the parents, we need to bring the children and the youth so that we can hear them. We need to listen, because I think that's one thing that we don't do. We talk a lot. We go to those meetings and it's all about the same people talking. But where are the voices of those who are deeply, concerned, deeply affected by what's going on? We need to take time to listen to them. And as you said, Lakisha, to meet them where they are so that we can move them to the next level. And I think if we are not intentional, we will just talk the talk, but we will not walk the walk.
Thank you both so much for your time today, but especially for everything that you do every day to support families in your community. I'm going to ask everyone to come back on camera so we can take some questions from our audience, from our attendees. Folks, if you have questions, please, I know we already saw some in the chat. Please use either the Q&A feature or the chat feature and send them our way. And Mariel, please let us know if anything is coming in over social media as well, as you, I think, have been keeping an eye on that. Great. Well, the first question I want to ask is actually to our students, and this is one that I saw in the chat earlier on, and that's, can you tell us a little bit more about what class is like for you? We asked you about your day. We'd love to hear about sort of what's a typical class like. Are you listening to your teachers talk a lot? Are you guys doing breakout groups and talking with each other? What does that look like?
Okay, I didn't know if you were going to call on someone specifically.
Go for it, Ellie.
A day in class, basically, it'll be all of us in a Zoom call, obviously. And depending on which subject it is, that depends whether we go out in breakout rooms or not, or if we do presentations together and we go in breakout rooms and work together. And if it's just mainly all of us, sometimes people may be tired, or some people just don't want to show their faces. It would just be black screens and some people showing their faces. And basically, the teachers kind of explaining. Most of the times, our teachers at my school, they do share their screens, and they have bullet points. They have slideshows, and they give us the link to it for we could follow along. and basically just try to make it as normal as they can.
Aiden, how about for you?
I usually have to, like, it also, like she said, it also depends about which subject it is. We have to, like, because, like, usually most of the time people wouldn't have their cameras on because, like, they just don't have their cameras on, and some people do. It's mostly people without cameras, and usually when it's like more of the first classes, like when it's like 8:30, people, like, some people don't use their cameras, but when it's like 3 or 12, like, people are like using their cameras and they're paying attention more.
Thank you for giving us that glimpse too. Most of us don't get to be in classes. I guess for better or for worse, you could argue, but we don't get to be there. So really appreciate it. One question that I'm seeing in the Q&A that just popped up is how do you feel that schools are connecting to the cultural capital of students, especially now? So for example, how our students come to school with a whole lot of strength and a whole lot of family histories and a whole lot of power in their communities, right? Do you feel like schools are tapping into those resources or not really, and why? And this is to anybody who wants to jump in.
Personally, for me, I feel that my school, at first, it's a really touchy subject, mainly because my school has been talking about Black Lives Matter movements, and it's a really touchy subject because a lot of like Latinos sometimes think to themselves, they're like, well, sometimes I don't go to protest, but that's still important to me. So they try to like think like, am I doing what's right? And I know my school has been getting into it. We have been having where it'll be one day where our teacher or our principals will like take time out of our schedule and make it crew, have a check-in with us. And we started to talk about it more and what does it mean to be racist and anti-racist. And it brought up a lot of questions to the surface because a lot of students were like, well, just because I don't go protest and break stores like a lot of people have been doing in order to show the anger and the disappointment that they have in society, does that mean that I am a racist? And it brought up a lot of questions to the surface. And it was just us trying to find our common ground of where we would stand. And a lot of kids from my school personally see themselves as anti-racist, and they do care about Black Lives Matter movements. Even though they don't go protest, they still post about it. They still put it out on social media to bring awareness. So my school definitely does try to tap into that a lot.
I would like to add to that as well. I think on the grand scheme, things they're not doing as well, but I think it's the responsibility of the teachers as an educator in the classroom for non-traditional, for high schoolers and postgraduate students. I make sure that I open up the conversation in my classrooms. So we always have a check in because emotions come with you to the classroom, regardless of how focused you want to be on the classwork. And so, in order to create that space of listening as well as teaching and educating and speaking to, it's very important as an educator to do that. So, I think that the onus is on the educators to open up their classrooms to allow for those emotional moments so that the students can bring their full selves and feel heard.
Thank you all so much. We are pretty much at time. I'm actually going to wrap up with our last question, which I think is actually a perfect segue to our closure, which is, where does this conversation go from here? Now what? We all got together, we all talked, right? And I'm gonna send this one to Marielle a little bit to talk about kind of what we're thinking in terms of next steps. And then I will close us out with some specific concrete things coming down the pike.
Thank you so much to our panelists. I'm if my voice is a bit of a lower register, it's because I've been here like wiping tears and shouting at you guys like yes. So thank you. I'm leaving this hour and a half together just feeling so full and so grateful, and also fired up. Our families are, as I said at the outset, doing absolutely everything imaginable to support their children and themselves through this moment. And so we have to do our part, and we have to meet them where they're at right now and do so much more than we have ever done. And so coming up, please stay tuned. We are going to be partnering in the coming weeks to support some focus groups with families to be able to continue to hear directly from them and continue learning from them. Uh, and just so that you guys know, we're not just listening for listening's sake. We are listening in order to create a platform and to craft recommendations that directly reflect what our families are saying and what they need in this moment. And so Natasha is going to share with you all the ways to stay engaged following this event. And we are very much looking forward to that. So please visit us again at www.masseduequity.org and through our mailing list. And so we will see you soon.
Thanks, everybody. One more time, I just want to thank all of our panelists. Thank you for sharing your time, for your experience, for everything that you do every day to make this situation work for your own families, as well as for families around you. We so appreciate your input and your candor and frankly, your vulnerability. Thank you very much for giving us all of this insight. So I'm going to wrap up by just sharing a few next steps and things to watch out for coming down the pike. I'm going to share a slide mostly so you all can see the some websites to go to. I also dropped the website into our chat, where you can go to sign up to receive further updates on this campaign. The Meet the Moment Massachusetts campaign is going to continue at least throughout this year, possibly longer than that. And we're kind of going to watch how things unfold from here on in. But really, what we're trying to do, again, to reiterate what Marielle said at the beginning, is to elevate the voices of families, community advocates, educators across the state of Massachusetts, and really center their voices in decision making. Once you sign up, you'll receive updates from us. You'll receive information such as, for example, there's some really interesting polling that's going to be coming from an organization called Mass Inc. in a few weeks. They are surveying a whole lot of families around the state of Massachusetts to give us another picture of what everyone's experiences have been like throughout the start of the school year. In addition, we would also love to hear from you. As you saw in these videos, all of these videos are the result of work and input that we've received from families across the state. And we would love to continue creating these compilations and using that medium to get these stories out into the world. So please email us if you would be interested in sharing your story with us as well. And finally, one more time, just want to thank our media sponsors at NBC, NECN, and Telemundo for all of their support.